All right, it's 1:04 Eastern, and I think we're going to get started. First of all, thank you to everybody who took the time to join today. We are recording this session. We also recorded Monday's session, but if for some reason you have to drop, don't worry about it, head out, and we will have the recording sent out most likely next week after we get everything trimmed up, edited, and uploaded, etc. So what we wanted to do with the webinar was really answer a lot of questions we have throughout the year. We have a lot of publishers, and the primary request is that we do a webinar and kind of recap everything we've come out with. Obviously, in the thick of it, it's hard to keep up with everything Broadstreet's doing and also run your publication. So Broadstreet's coming out with new products, a refresher as to what's happened and what's going to happen in 2019. We've been told would be really helpful, and that's what we want to do here. So what we're going to cover today, first of all, we're going to talk about 10 advantages. That was something we came out with earlier in the year. We're going to very briefly cover that. It's an ebook we put out. Talk about some of the publisher trends of 2018. Nothing major in 2018, just a different way of selling advertising across different sections of the website. And we have a couple of examples there that I thought were pretty interesting. Some of our more recent ad formats. So I think probably maybe the 5 or 6 ad formats we've come out with in the last couple of months. So you may have seen them. What we'll do is actually go through them visually, and for one of them we'll create. So we'll go ahead and do that. And then talk about what's coming up in 2019, how 10 advantages and how our view of ad formats has been shaped. And that'll probably play into some products we're coming up. And then we'll talk about Broadstreet Native and Park Ave. So Park Ave is a product Broadstreet's been working on for about a year. It's a really big deal for us because we put so much time and effort into it, along with our ad formats. And this is the first time we've ever actually shown kind of a general audience what Park Ave is, but it's a product that's gonna be very helpful to Broadstreet users. It'll be included in the package for Broadstreet users. And if you happen to be stuck on an ad platform that is not Broadstreet, sometimes that happens. Your accounting team or just sales team just uses another platform, but you still want to use some of Broadstreet's tools. That's where Park Ave comes in. And then we'll go through Q&A if anybody has any questions. And of course, if you have questions throughout the webinar, feel free to use that chat tool. I like to keep an eye on it. I have a second monitor. I keep an eye on it and see any of the questions that come in and answer them there. So we'll try and keep this webinar pretty short and sweet. I know not everybody has all the time to listen to me talk about some Broadstreet's products, so we'll try and get it into about 30 minutes if possible. So moving on. So if you haven't read 10 Advantages, it was an ebook we put out for Broadstreet. I wrote the great majority of it. It's the 10 advantages of hyperlocal and magazine publishers in the world of Google and Facebook. So Google and Facebook, it's no secret, have a huge majority of the advertising spend, and they do have tremendous advantages. They have scale, they have data on users, they have intent data. We'll talk about that in a second. So they have all of this data and they have all of this reach and all this power, but magazine publishers and hyperlocal publishers do have innate and powerful advantages that some of our most successful customers are leveraging those advantages and getting ad sales where otherwise an advertiser might end up working with a Google Display Network or a Facebook. So it's really a study of what makes Google and Facebook so powerful. We kind of need to, not to say that they're enemies, but they are kind of our biggest competitors. So what makes them so powerful? What are some of their weaknesses, and where do local news and magazine publishers really shine? And also trade and industry publishers. We also have some radio broadcasters too, but we all have the same problem. How do we exist and grow in a world with Facebook and Google? So 10 Advantages goes very deep into this. That's broadstreetads.com/10advantages. It's a great primer for your sales team, or if you're just thinking about your strategy for 2019, it's great reading. So we've had a lot of really positive feedback. Even just this week, we're still getting feedback from people who just read it. It's one of those things we either never read because it's so dense, or you read 5 times over because there's that much in it. So it's not a marketing book. It's everything we've learned at Broadstreet, everything we've gathered from working with our customers. We put it into basically 34 pages that go very in depth. So if you get a chance to read it, I'd absolutely recommend it. It kind of like moving on from that, it goes very deeply into, kind of jokingly, the Google and Facebook lunch eating machine. Facebook and Google have incredible reach. You can target anybody. We have data, we know what they're into. If you go on Facebook, we know we can target people by interests and likes and age and all other kinds of demographic and data. We also know that, you know, they have intent. You know, if you're in the market for a mattress, you're in the market for a new car, you literally tell Google that, and they turn that into an advertising opportunity. More recently, obviously, our phones are recording some of our conversations. This is known, and that's making its way into advertising networks. Of course, it's anonymous, quote unquote, but this is really happening. So they have intent data. They have an incredible amount of data, but they also have a weakness in that they can't do really much in the way of creativity. So that has kind of shaped what we're doing at Broadstreet. So how do you take those 10 advantages and turn them into kind of an action plan? And what are your advantages as a niche publisher? One, you work directly with your advertiser. Two is that you can create ads and spec them out prior to your sales appointments. You know, you have a face-to-face with your advertiser. That's something a Google and a Facebook will never have. You have the ability to walk your publisher through a campaign and help them be successful that a Google and Facebook can't do. You can offer a clear and understandable pricing model. It's not based on the impression or some budget that's going to evaporate over the course of a week like Google and Facebook have. You can also show them something that's unique and eye-catching. Let's be real, everything, a Google display ad on the New York Times or really any website is the same everywhere. There's not a lot they can do in terms of creativity because of that scale. You can also offer some form of exclusivity in terms of section sponsorships, and we'll talk about that a little bit. And you can also leverage your newsletter audience. Advertisers love newsletters. This is something that's come out, especially in the last 2 years. Newsletters are really big and a growing section of our publishers' revenue streams. So let's talk about trends among digital publishers. We are kind of working our way into Broadstreet's newer ad formats and the best-selling ad formats. Let's just talk very quickly about trends among digital publishers. We start to see, and you might have noticed on WashingtonPost.com, New York Times, really any big publisher site, we're starting to see newer and creative ad formats. So this drum we've been beating of, hey, we need a bigger ad format. We need something beyond 720 by 90s. We need something advertisers are actually going to go for. We're starting to see that. I just put them here as examples. New York Times, if you go to NewYorkTimes.com, you'll probably see a 970 by 250 at the top. That's relatively new, this big placement. If you're reading a story, a lot of times you'll find a big placement like this breaking up the article. Get my Zoom control panel out of the way. It's keeping me from getting back to the presentation. ESPN, this is another example. This is a non-standard ad format that's specific to ESPN, just something that fits into their look and feel. And you can see here they have Allstate with a branding in the background and then a big banner up here. So we're starting to see these more bespoke and premium campaigns, even on big publisher sites. So it's clear that if publishers want to survive and they want to succeed and actually grow, it's really about offering something to the client, whether it's an agency or an advertiser, that they're not going to get anywhere else. And ESPN is offering something pretty unique here instead of your standard banner ads. Small and mid-sized publishers, we know, have been experimenting with roadblocks and section sponsorships. So we just had a couple examples here. These are more recent, and I really like what they're doing. Potomac Local just launched with a new site. Looks great, and I think if we visit their site, we should say, yeah, there we go. This is a roadblock. And we have, obviously, the same advertiser in the top leaderboard, really big space. And the reason for this size is that it also looks great on mobile. And then they also have this, this unit in the sidebar here. So if we refresh the page, we're going to see that we have a different advertiser, but still occupying those two different spaces. Refresh again, and we'll see what else we get. Looks like an urgent care center. And we refresh, and it looks like we have a few of them in there. So this is a strategy that Potomac Local has shifted to, going back to our list. So that's what we call a roadblock. We also have section sponsorships, a section being your homepage or different sections of the site. Australian Geographic looks like it's still up, has a similar campaign as to what we saw on ESPN. They have a more outfitted kind of takeover campaign. This is limited specifically to the homepage. So, so this is a section sponsorship. Of course, you could have a different sponsor for something like travel or blogs or really whatever section of your website you'd like to have sponsored. And then we noticed Project Q Atlanta, we just talked with the publisher here, really interesting idea, actually having advertisers sponsor a series. So here they have a holiday gift guide, and they have the advertisers that you'll see on this, this page are actually limited specifically to this gift guide. So in this case, they have a series that they have sponsors for, as opposed to a different section. So really interesting take, and something that hopefully works out really well. So some really cool forward-thinking ideas from some of the publishers there. And then this is really interesting. We've had a lot of interest in this. We've seen it more and more among publishers around, or in our audience. Bethesda Magazine, in this case, let's take a look at them. They have a great native style unit that Broadstreet developed for them. So if you visit their site and scroll down, you'll see this sponsored content unit right here. So this isn't actually a post in their, their WordPress instance. This is actually a Broadstreet ad that is injected and looks exactly like the other content on their page. Obviously, it's highlighted, called out as sponsored content, but this is basically an ad that collects all the views, hovers, clicks, etc. And they have them interjected every two articles. They have another sponsored content unit. So what's really interesting about these is that they're also seamlessly integrated into their newsletter, not as images, but as actual content. So we know that a lot of publishers have their kind of like their automated weekly newsletter that kind of rifles off the 10 most recent stories from the WordPress instance, and then the sponsored content gets interweaved with that. So it's so seamless. You give it a title, an image, a headline, and a description. It appears on the front page of their website as if it's content, and then also gets worked into their newsletter, and they get all of that reporting to a nice place. And then it doesn't always look like this. You take a look at Homes of the Week over here. This is also native content. It's the same exact concept, it just looks differently. So you start to see kind of like, it's still advertising, and it is very native advertising, but we're starting to see some publishers do some really cool and interesting things here. And I think Potomac Local also has something similar on the front page. You can see they have promoted posts, latest news. I think they actually have a different set. These aren't Broadstreet ads in this case, but they do use Broadstreet in a couple of different ways. So if that's something you're interested in, we'll talk about it more briefly. In fact, I have a screenshot of the newsletter. If it's something you're interested in, let me know, because what we're doing is putting together a package within Broadstreet, Broadstreet Native. Oh, it looks like we have a question. Can you click on that sponsored block so we can see what it looks like? So I think that would mean click in. That's from Ryan. So if we click into the sponsor block, I think this is actually external in this case. So this will link to external content, and it goes to the advertiser's actual website. Yep, so it can link internally, to content within the website, and then it can link externally. So you can set up in a few different ways, and it's very custom, or it can be customized to a great extent, but yeah, it fits in very nicely. So this is actually something I didn't cover on the last webinar. There's a great article that came out of Media Radar, which kind of does studies on advertising in the publishing industry. And it talks about how selling native advertising, there's a lot of opportunity there, but it's mainly for the publishers who can differentiate themselves. So it's not just running native advertising and calling it a day. It's finding ways to integrate it in a unique way that your advertisers are really going to like. And if that doesn't play into the broader philosophy of Broadstreet, I don't really know what does. Broadstreet's all about being unique. We believe that advertising has always been unique. We believe that ad tech in general has bottled it up and made it very difficult for publishers to differentiate themselves. So the reason we exist is to help publishers and their sales teams offer something unique to their advertisers. We want them to be successful, and Media Radar just kind of nailed it on the head here. So we'll send out these slides afterward just so you have all these links. We know we have a lot of stuff linked in here. So kind of like making a right turn, what is Broadstreet's ad format philosophy? A lot of what we believe that advertising should be, a lot of the things that we've learned over the past 4 years building ad formats. We've built some really cool ad formats. We've built some really goofy ones. Really just listening to our customers the whole way and listening to the feedback they've gotten from their advertisers. So we put together a set of like 5 points that, that are very important to us and kind of shape how we build these new ad formats. So one is that really all Broadstreet ad formats that we build going forward should be create once and run on any device. So even if you have a 728 by 90 leaderboard and a 970 by 250 leaderboard, we want you to be able to run that on a mobile device, for example. Normally, leaderboards don't look great on mobile devices. So we want you to be able to create it once and not have to worry about where it's actually going to run. And also in the same way, support the latest IAB standards. So IAB has come out with some new proportional standards, 4x1, 8x1. These are like proportional sizes. So think an ad that is 8 times as wide as it is tall. So these are sizes not kind of dictated by fixed sizes. They're more scalable and can be viewed on any device. So we're supporting those latest IAB standards, which is primarily because most publishers and ad tech vendors haven't caught up with that yet. So we're going to make sure that you're on the cutting edge in terms of what you're running. And we're also going to lean heavily toward plug and play. So it's not that we don't like designers, we love designers, but we realize that the publishers who are the most successful are the ones who are leveraging their ability to create spec ads before the sales meeting. So they use Broadstreet to create a cube or create some kind of ad before the sales meeting so they can actually walk into the sales meeting and show the advertiser what they can have. Or they can send the advertiser a link to it by email and show them what they can have. So the only way that really works is if the publisher can create, or the advertiser, or the ad salesperson can create something with a few images, some text, create it in a couple of minutes. If it takes too much time, no one's going to do it. And it has to look attractive. So the question is, how can we make an ad that is customized to the advertiser, easy to create, and actually looks good? So that is our goal. If we can do that, we've removed so much overhead from the ad sales process, and that was actually our last point. But we're really focusing on the pitch and the presentation to the advertisers. It's okay, and it's a good thing to make ad formats and just put them on our platform and make them available for our publishers. But we're really creating them so that when you get to that sales meeting, you're showing them something that they're going to be impressed by. Something that nobody else is walking into a sales appointment. We still have Patch around. We still have every other startup blogger in the world who's trying to get something going. What are you doing that's different that nobody else is offering? That just gives you a great advantage in terms of sales. So this has really been our ad format philosophy, and it shaped some of these new products that we've come out with. So the new products, I'll start this by saying that the Amazing Cube is easily the #1 seller. We have had more cubes created on our platform than any other format. It's probably it's a divider, not a uniter, as we say. People either love the cube or they despise it. So one of the first products we created for our new ad products was a reformed version of our original cube. It's a rotating 3D cube, and we'll take a quick look at it. So let's scroll down here, and we'll also examine some of the properties of these new ad formats. So first, let's let it rotate. All right, so the 3D cube takes 6 images, rotates it around. Advertisers tend to really love it, and you can see why. Anybody who's into editorial, a lot of publishers with editorial backgrounds despise it. So we know that. We kind of created it as a proof of concept. It grew legs and took off in a way that we never really imagined. And we'll take a look at the original cube later, but this is what the cube looks like. It comes in a lot of different forms, the 970 by 250. So if you have a leaderboard space or something at the top of your website, this is obviously going to get attention. And 800 by 600, so this is a form that goes great inside content. So if you have an article column, which is usually on the left, or for newer single column websites, it kind of spans the full width of the page. This can actually go in your content and break up the content, or go at the bottom of the article. 300 by 600, classic sidebar size, and a 300 by 250. And also 720 by 90. So if you're still rolling on 720 by 90s, we have that for you too. So what's important to note here is that these are not 6 different ads. We didn't create this ad 6 different times. Otherwise, we would have gone crazy putting this page together. This is the same ad being told to display in 6 different sizes. So kind of along that create once, run anywhere, let's take a look at how this all responds on mobile, because that's the #1 question everyone will have and everyone should have. Okay, this is great, Broadstreet, but how does it look on mobile? Because an increasing number of our mobile traffic, some are reporting 50, 60, and now even 70% are coming from mobile. So let's take a look at how this looks on mobile. We'll kind of go into our mobile mode here. 4:1 scales down proportionally, just like the IMB says it should. 970 by 250. You can see this converts to a 300 by 250. 800 by 600 converts to a 300 by 600 automatically. Our 300 by 600 doesn't have to do anything, already looks good on mobile. 300 by 250, and then the 720 by 90 also converts to a 300 by 250. All right, so a lot of times when you run a banner ad like a 720 by 90 on mobile, it shrinks down, you can barely read it. Not really good. Not really good because #1, it doesn't look good visually, but then the advertiser says, how come I can't read my ad? We want to avoid that conversation. So that's what these formats do. So all of our new ad formats going forward will work on any device. That's the idea of them. So we have a question, is there a new section for just these ads in the admin? Yes. So when we go to create these new ads, we create a new category called next generation. So that's actually a pretty good cue to actually jump in and say, okay, why don't we just create one of these very quickly? It only takes a minute. So we'll go ahead and jump into our Broadstreet dashboard. Give the name. So we'll just create a new trial account very quickly. So let's just say you want to show somebody the cube. Your ad sales rep has an appointment in a few minutes. So what we'll do is create a new advertiser. Just give it a name, cube example. And then what we'll do when we're at the advertiser page is click new advertisement. And if you're familiar with Broadstreet, this isn't anything new. But you'll notice this new category called next generation. So this is to answer the question. Next generation, all of our new formats are in this next generation category. So the Billboard, we'll see an example of this Billboard later. Really big, really powerful. Real estate showcase. This is really just to hit one of our publishers' favorite verticals, real estate agents, still a huge source of advertising. Event promotion, another really big one. Video billboard, featured articles listing. We'll see that in a few. And then amazing cube. So we'll click to create an amazing cube example. And now you'll see that to create an amazing cube, what we do is we give it an initial size. So in this case, we'll give it a 970 by 250. Upload a logo, and then there's really just a few fields to fill out. Most of them have reasonable defaults. Upload 6 images and the captions you would like on each image. Each image can link to a different page or a different link. But in this case, we just uploaded 6 random images of pancakes, when we're creating this thing. Click create advertisement, and then Broadstreet will generate the cube. We're good to go. So then you have this preview link. If you use Broadstreet, a lot of publishers use that preview link so they can show their advertisers that cube in action. And you could also preview it on the site, to show it as if it were live, etc. So that's the process of creating these. So every single ad format that we've come out that was brand new follows that same process. So it doesn't require, much to actually create some of these ad formats. So even if, tech isn't really your thing, maybe new software just kind of seems like a lot to learn or pick up, really, really easy to create. Let's take a quick look at some of these next formats, the featured article listing. So featured article listing intended primarily for healthcare. We wanted a ad format that really complemented sponsored content. A lot of our publishers are putting out sponsored and content and stories about their advertisers. And we wanted something that could either link to that or the advertisers' content they might already have on their site. A lot of attorneys, have people that write content for them and talk about how to get about all kinds of cases and different legal cases, and kind of drop their opinions online. We want to make it really easy for you to create ads using content that your potential client is already producing. So a lot of potential customers have YouTube videos online. So you drop in a YouTube video. We know they have social links online, so we'll link to those. And then you have 4 places to place links. And again, 970 by 250. Here's our in-story. I think this is probably my favorite view of it. 800 by 600, that should probably go in story. And then all of our sidebar positions. So we built this to not only cover sponsor content, but also help us get to advertisers that are traditionally hard to get for display advertising. So think healthcare. Healthcare is the one. I haven't met a single publisher who said that they didn't find healthcare to be a target vertical. They say we want to get them on board, but we don't really have anything to really offer them or get their attention. So this was one that we thought could really work out for them. And in fact, one of our publishers reached out to us the week after we released it and said that they had an advertiser really interested in it. So this is our new featured articles unit. Again, next generation category. Pick featured articles and really easy to create. So continue down, keep opening a million tabs. Real estate showcase. So real estate showcase, this is very simple. Include 3 images or property information for 3 properties. Agent info over here. See 970 by 250, 800 by 600, 2 properties here. So another one that we had a publisher create a lot of these instantly, and they said, you've got a hit down here in Virginia. So they let us know that this is working out really well for their clients. So that's the real estate gallery. And then the billboard. So this is another one that, again, love it or hate it. Ad sales people love it. Editorial, not so hot on it, but let's take a look. This is the billboard. And you can see the billboard is something that takes over the top of the page. There isn't any coding, no extra development involved. It just finds its way to the top of the page and hides behind the content. So as you scroll up, the content hides it. And if we go back to our page, there's another format of the same billboard, and it's got a video involved. So video, again, so many advertisers have them built. They had an agency produce a video, and their agency, or it's just sitting on YouTube, no one's viewing it because who's going to watch it anyway? So in this case, we just grabbed the Whole Foods video, slapped the logo on there, and we have a nice call to action ready to go, something you can show the advertiser right away in a sales meeting. And just because you create it prior to a sales meeting doesn't mean the advertiser has to say yes to that specifically, right? You can always go back and refine it, and inevitably they're going to say something like, oh, we want a different font. Can you change the colors? Can you use a different video? Of course they will. But that has gotten them talking and, at least taking this whole idea of running a campaign with you seriously. So video is a really big one. We had a lot of customers request more video. And then event promotion. So we saw this before, and we had a lot of these created in the weeks after it came out. Just something where you can upload a background image, give it a title, description, call to action. Same exact thing. So events, there's always somebody looking to promote an event, trying to get the word out about something. Turns out that just creating the event on Facebook and posting it there isn't working so well, or not as well as it used to, at least. And what we'll do, and we have a question, any API available to pull in the events automatically? So we know that Broadstreet historically has done dynamic ads. We've done that with our social media ads. And so that is the next goal. So I'll talk about some of the dynamicism and where we're heading with these formats. But the short answer is yes. There won't be an API to do it, but we'll have a mechanism for doing it. So that will be possible. And then to answer Luke's question, how's that billboard look on mobile? So let's go back to that billboard very quickly. Take a look at that billboard. Go ahead, look at it on mobile. So here it just does the same thing, but on mobile. And then this is because this is an image, so it kind of like, it scales down like an image would. And then let's just revisit that video billboard very quickly. Now let's take a look at that. This actually takes a slightly different approach, where the YouTube video or the video goes up top and then our call to action comes down here. So because it's not an image, we're actually able to relay it out. So you can see that's how it looks on mobile. So this is where we're going. This is touching on Ryan's question. What do Broadstreet's upcoming ads look like? Well, dynamicism has been something that we've always, there's always been a lot of popularity around that. People like when the content of the ads can update itself. And if you're familiar with Broadstreet's past, one of our first and biggest products was something we called editable ads. And we had different versions of that. But think of an ad whose content was basically based on their advertiser's social media content. So pull in the advertiser's logo, their content, their latest posts, and compile it all into an ad. That way you didn't have to do anything. The ad was already built off the advertiser's content. So along those, and we're going to keep that up, especially with social media, but we're also going to do this for other services as well. So pulling in events, in this case, Google reviews. There are a lot of advertisers out there who have great Google reviews. Obviously, you only see that when you search for them. If you're looking for somebody to put, a new roof on your house, a contractor, or a kitchen remodeler or something like that, you'll find some 5 out of 5 and very positive, emphatic Google reviews. And why not showcase that? It shouldn't be something that people have to find on their own. It's something that we could bring to the forefront, and also keep it updated. So you'll be able to limit this to only 5 out of 5 reviews, probably not the overall review. We wouldn't do the overall calculation of the reviews. We won't do that, but you could limit it in the right sidebar to only the best reviews. So you'll see that coming up. So this is just a proof of concept with Chipotle that we have internally. And then here's another one, kind of getting to video. Again, video, just getting so much traction. In this case, this is a proof of concept for cars. Upload YouTube video, 3 pictures, and the call to action up here. So this, again, these are going to be available in the horizontal versions, the in-story, all the sizes that we saw before. So let's talk about the most effective sellers. Some of them we've already covered, and they won't be surprising. Others are brand new ad formats, have done really well in the last couple of months. So the Amazing Cube, we saw that. This is the original one. The original one is the one that's actually selling the best. That's because it's probably the one that everyone's familiar with, so they're still going to this one in the dashboard. This is the classic, in this case, the cheeseburger cube, that other ad tech companies just know us as the Cube company. We have customers come on board specifically for the Cube. So like I said, I really didn't see things playing out this way, but it did. Here's the Cube, same thing that we saw before, but in this very restricted sidebar-y kind of layout. The newer version of the Cube obviously has all those different sizes. So we've had a lot of customers who love the Cube that always want to use it in their leaderboard that can now do that with the newer version. So that has been by far the #1 seller all time on Broadstreet. The sticky note is probably the second most. I forgot, we didn't actually rank these, we just did a top 7. Here's the sticky note, and there's actually a conversation more recently in the Broadstreet community group, which if you're not a member of the Broadstreet community group, it's a great place to be. A lot of publishers, I think we have almost 600 publishers in the Broadstreet community group on Facebook. That's, I think that's more than other publishing organizations. So publisher associations, I think we actually have more publishers in there. There's so much good conversation that takes place, and people talk about what they're selling things for. One of them, the conversation was around the sticky note. Somebody was saying they sell it for a few hundred a week. This, again, no coding, just create the ad. It only takes text, and then you run it on your site. It just automatically affixes itself up here on the right. And you can imagine how quickly you can create this and how advertisers love it because it's front and center. A lot of advertisers, if they can see it, if they see something like this, they say, oh yeah, this will work. This is worth the money I'm about to spend on it. So, that's how a lot of people make their advertising decisions. So for them, if they're looking to promote an event or they really want to get something out, sometimes some people just need to get the word out about something last minute. This is a great way to do it. You can rate limit it, make sure it doesn't annoy your readers, etc. So that's been a really popular one. Social media, this is kind of the one I was talking about earlier. This is the instant Instagram, pulls in the latest content from an advertiser's Instagram feed, using the content that they've already created themselves, helps them double down on their investment. That's a big strategy, is like, obviously if people are creating YouTube videos and they're investing in their social media strategy, our publisher should help them double down on that strategy. So amplify your Instagram audience, pull in the latest content. Turns out that ads that change, when their content changes, they perform like 3 to 5 times better. So, so there's a lot here, and instant Instagram is easily one of our biggest sellers, primarily because it's easy to create. This is very commonly used as something that our customers bring into a sales meeting, because advertisers like seeing their own content, and it's easy to create. You just give it an Instagram handle, the username, and it generates one of these, really easy to create and run with. The sneaker, again, something that pops up. Take a quick look at that. A lot of you are familiar with the sneaker. This comes up from the bottom. Also looks really good on mobile. So down here, that there aren't really a lot of options for publishers to run something down low on mobile. It's like on mobile, we only have so much space that we can work with. It's either above the header or somewhere in content. Something like this floats above the content. So it's very helpful there. Take time for a quick question. How does the Instagram update itself real time with new Instagram posts of the advertisers posting on Instagram? So the instant Instagram ad actually pulls in every hour. So Broadstreet's system is basically tracking their Instagram, and it'll pull in the latest content about every hour and make sure that the Instagram ad always has the latest content. So going down to the Billboard, we've seen the Billboard. All right, let's take a look at it in the wild. Here's Sweetwater Now. I have certain favorites that I call on, and Sweetwater Now is just always in the list. So Gary from Sweetwater Now runs this Billboard nonstop. In fact, he was the one who suggested the Billboard. So if you do end up liking the Billboard, you can thank Gary. As we refresh, you can see they have another bank up here. This is a high dollar premium unit. So you can talk to Gary and ask what he sells this for, but it's a lot. And if you refresh it, you'll see it runs a decent number of advertisers through here, and all of them just look so good. Like the Whistler Chevy, really high resolution, looks great on mobile. Whistler Chevy isn't getting the offer to run something like this from a lot of its publishers. There's no agency knocking on Whistler Chevy's door saying, hey, we can do this for you. Only Sweetwater Now is offering it to Whistler Chevy and its other advertisers. So this is the video billboard in the wild, and New Jersey Monthly also recently had the video billboard running at the top of their site, and that looked really good. So event promotion, we saw a look at that, or we took a look at that, and then the YouTube ad. The YouTube ad is the most basic ad. So we have a few different video formats. The YouTube ad, which is just a YouTube player with some text underneath it, by far the most popular. Something about just the innocence of a standard YouTube player. People click on it, they watch the video, and then sometimes they'll follow up the link underneath here. So this performs really, really well, and it's easily one of the most popular formats that's created. We have a question. General question for rotations: is it typically better to set these ads to rotate every X number of seconds, or better to rotate on refresh? I personally think rotate on refresh is better. When you're starting out and you don't necessarily have a lot of traffic, sometimes, the nice thing about rotating in place on the page is that you're giving all of those advertisers views. So if you only have, let's just say you're starting out and you only have 10,000 views a month or something like that, this way you can make sure that every one of those advertisers in a spot gets 10,000 views, as opposed to each advertiser, in the case of 4 advertisers, getting 2,500 views. So if you don't have a lot of impressions to work with, sometimes rotation's better. But I think as you kind of grow and scale up, you probably want to back off the rotation, because it tends to get a little crazy when you have a lot of ad units and they're all rotating. So I'd say it's probably a better idea as time goes on to back away from it. But when you're starting out, whatever works to get advertisers on board. If an advertiser says, hey, I want to be seen on every page view, and the only way to make that work is rotating zones, sometimes you do what you have to do. We're in the business of trying to grow this whole thing. So that'd be my answer there. All right, so let's talk about Broadstreet Native. We already saw that on Bethesda Magazine. Let's take a look at it one more time. If you're interested in doing something like this, let us know. We're still kind of getting this package together. It's something we can absolutely do for Broadstreet customers. And even if you're not on Broadstreet, if there's something you're interested in, it's something we can do with our platform. Really, it's taking a title, a description, an image, and a link, and showing that in a lot of different ways, whether it's sponsored content here, Homes of the Week here, and then automatically integrating it into your newsletter. So I have a very small screenshot of Bethesda Magazine's newsletter here, and here you can see a sponsored content unit, which is no different than this unit that they had on their website over here on the left. Here it's sitting in their newsletter as text, as clickable text, not just like an ad image. So the way that would look on Broadstreet's side is that we'd have the title, we'd have the description, the image, etc. So not really any different than the ad creation that we've seen before. So that's Broadstreet Native. So that's native advertising has been around for a few years now, and I think we're starting to figure out what's worked for local and magazine organizations. Now let's move on. Let's squeeze the links. These slides, we'll send them out after the webinar. We'll make this recording available. I think today's recording is probably the one I'll prefer. So we'll record this, or we'll take this recording, edit it, upload it. 10 advantages. You can tell them at the end of the webinar. 10 advantages. The link to that is broadstreetads.com/10advantages. We'll make sure this link is fixed. And then the full ad format list. We actually get this question a lot from our existing customers. Where can I see a list of all your ad formats? If you click on support inside our dashboard, you'll be taken to information.broadstreetads.com. Then once you're on that page, just click ad formats. You'll see the entire list is 90 of them. You'll be instantly overwhelmed. And I would suggest if you're going to do that, just pick the 5 or 10 that you like the most and play around with those. Work them into your media kit, go from there. So at this point, let's open up to Q&A. See if anyone has any questions. If there's anything you'd like me to dive into deeper, any questions about some of our newer products, we have to answer it or answer them. So what I'll do is I'll go on mute for about a minute. And if you need to drop, that's great. Thank you so much for coming. And if you'd like to stay on, listen to some of the Q&A, we'll go ahead and do that. So I'll go on mute for about a minute. So just to answer one of the questions that came up previously, we have what is the name of the sponsored content ad type? So that ad type doesn't actually exist yet. It's something that we would have to create on a per publisher basis. So so it doesn't, there's no name for it yet, but the overall package will be called Broadstreet Native. And if you have any questions, definitely follow up with me. I'm Kenny at broadstreetads.com. If you have any questions about the content of the webinar or how some of this could be implemented on your site, if it's not clear, just let me know. Thank you for taking the time today. I hope it was valuable. Obviously, I don't like taking a chunk of anybody's time unless it's something that they're going to walk away from and say, hey, that was really good. Glad I spent an hour doing that. So if you have any feedback, for good or bad, definitely let me know, Kenny at broadstreetads.com. Take care, everybody. Good luck in 2018 and 19. Definitely read 10 Advantages if you get a chance. We put a lot of work into it. We're also going to be coming out with an ad sales guide next year too. So for new onboarding sales reps, really everything, getting into the nuts and bolts of what it takes to sell an ad at the local level. Everything from your initial contact, what do I say? Once they seem interested, where do I go from there? What do I put into a proposal? How do I get someone to say yes without screwing up? All of that. We've had a lot of requests for something like that. We figured we'd put it into a 10 Advantages style book. So again, thank you for jumping on today. We'll call it there, and keep an eye out for the recording afterward. Thanks so much.